My wife left for a month with the wildlife documentarian next door. I filed for divorce. She came back saying it was a mistake and she wanted to rebuild. But I'm not a second option. I'm done being her backup when the thrill wears off. It's funny how easy it is to miss a crack when everything feels fine on the surface. My name's Neil. I'm 31 years old, a civil engineer in a lakeside town called Waybridge, Michigan. It's the kind of place where people leave their doors unlocked and wave at you even if they don't know your name. I've lived here most of my life, and to be honest, that's just the way I like it. Quiet, predictable, uncomplicated. I married Lila 8 years ago. She was 22 when we met, tagging along with a friend of mine on a last-minute camping trip. I remember her stumbling out of a tent barefoot, hair tangled, grinning like she'd just woken up from the best dream of her life. She brought this energy with her, wild, unpredictable, completely unlike mine. I liked it. She said I made her feel safe, and I think I liked that even more. We never planned on having kids. Not because we couldn't, just because neither of us felt drawn to it. We had our routines. Weeknight dinners on the deck, weekend brunch at the little diner with the green booths, date nights with Thai takeout, and reruns of old crime shows. It was all steady, familiar, and for a long time, it was enough. Lila drifted from one creative project to another, painting, writing, some ceramics phase that ended with a cracked kiln in our garage. Eventually, she landed on photography, mostly nature shots around the lake. She never made much money from it, but I didn't mind. She kept our home beautiful and warm. Her presence filled the gaps. I worked long hours, managing infrastructure plans for local bridges and highways. It wasn't glamorous, but it paid well and kept me grounded. I like drawing neat lines through chaos. In construction, you know what's coming: blueprints, budgets, weather delays. You can plan for almost everything, but you can't blueprint a marriage. At least, not forever. Sometimes, in the evenings, I'd catch her staring out at the lake with that faraway look, like she was somewhere I couldn't follow. I didn't ask. I figured she was just dreaming, the way she always did. That was just Lila. And maybe that was my mistake, assuming I always knew what was going on inside her. One night, about a month ago, we were grilling on the back deck. She laughed at something I said, reached out, and touched my arm. It was small, but I remember thinking, good. We're still us. I didn't realize at the time how much I needed that reassurance. Now, looking back, I wonder if that was the moment she decided to start pulling away. But at the time, everything still felt fine. Comfortable, steady, the same way it had always been. And that was the problem. When you spend years convincing yourself that nothing's wrong, you stop noticing the signs. You stop looking for cracks. And by the time they finally split wide open, it's already too late. It started the day the Jeep pulled up next door. I was fixing a loose hinge on the gate when I heard the gravel crunch and looked up to see a dusty old Wrangler, top down, gear stacked high in the back like a traveling exhibit. Out stepped a guy around his late 20s, lean, tanned, and wearing the kind of easy confidence I hadn't seen much outside of TV. He had a camera slung across his chest and a duffel in one hand, like he'd just come from a jungle shoot. That was how Trent entered our lives. He moved into the old Weatherby cottage. Mr. Weatherby had passed the previous winter, and the place had been sitting empty since, peeling white paint, moss on the steps, shingles that needed replacing. I figured someone would eventually tear it down or rent it out for tourists. Instead, it got Trent, a wildlife documentarian who, as I'd come to learn quickly, liked to talk about rainforests and tundras like they were hometowns. Lila was immediately curious. That evening, when I mentioned seeing the new neighbor arrive, she perked up. "Did you say documentarian?" she asked, her eyes already lighting up. "Like, for animals." "Yeah, wildlife guy. You'll see him. Kinda hard to miss." She laughed. "Sounds interesting." 2 days later, I came home from work and saw her standing at the edge of our yard, talking to him by the fence. She had that camera smile on, head tilted, hair tucked behind one ear, and was nodding like he was unraveling some secret of the universe. I waved from the driveway. She waved back, barely. The conversations kept happening. Short ones at first, just hellos while he unloaded gear or worked on his porch shirtless. Then longer chats by the dock, always just out of earshot. I'd catch glimpses of them talking while I watered the plants or took out the trash. One time, they were laughing together, her hand lightly touching his arm before she walked away. It was quick, but I noticed. She started getting up earlier. "Jogging," she said. Something about wanting to start the day with more energy. I didn't think much of it until I noticed that Trent went running too. Same time, same path by the lake. Lila, who used to groan at anything before 8 a.m., was suddenly buying moisture-wicking leggings and watching trail running YouTube videos on her phone. At dinner one night, she casually mentioned his photo blog. "He's been everywhere," she said between bites. "India, Botswana, Alaska. He has this one shot of wolves hunting through a frozen ravine. You should see it." I nodded, chewing slower. That's so. She didn't catch my tone, or maybe she ignored it. She kept scrolling through her phone, showing me a site, her finger pausing a little longer on the ones where Trent looked like he'd just survived something wild. I'd never seen her so drawn in, not to someone else's world. That weekend, she left her camera bag by the door. I might go out with Trent tomorrow, she said casually. He offered to show me how he edits his footage. Just photography stuff. It was the way she said his name that made something shift in me. Like he'd already become familiar. Like he belonged here somehow. I smiled, but it felt thin. Sounds good. She smiled back and turned away. I sat there staring at the back door long after she walked out. And for the first time since we moved to this town, I didn't feel like I was on solid ground. It was little things at first. She stopped looking up when I came home. No more warm greetings, no more, "Hey babe, how was your day?" She'd be on the couch, knees tucked under her, phone in hand. When I'd kiss the top of her head, she'd smile without really looking at me. And maybe that's all it was, a tired smile. But once you start noticing something's off, you can't unsee it. She guarded her phone more. Not with a passcode or anything dramatic, just quick screen flips when I walked in, conversations ended mid-text, and more time spent with the screen lighting up her face than spent actually talking to me. One morning, I walked out to the deck and spotted them, Lila and Trent, tucked behind the boathouse. I only caught a glimpse. They were sitting close, sharing something on her phone, laughing. Her hand rested on his knee for just a moment. When I stepped around the corner, she jumped like I'd fired a gun. "Oh, you scared me," she said, standing up fast and brushing dirt off her legs. I nodded slowly. "Didn't mean to sneak up on you." Trent gave me a relaxed smile. "Hey, Neil, you ever see the way dragonflies mate mid-flight? It's wild." I didn't answer. I just walked back to the house and didn't say a word the rest of the day. That night, I brought it up. "What were you doing behind the boathouse?" She didn't even pretend to misunderstand. "We were just talking. You touched his leg." She blinked, then laughed like it was ridiculous. "Neil, it's not like that. You're reading into things." I wanted to believe her. I did. But when someone's drifting away, you start to feel it, even in silence. A few days later, I overheard her on the phone with her sister, Meg. I was walking past the guest room and caught a few words through the crack in the door. "He's just so different. I don't know how to explain it. It's like he's actually alive, you know? Like, passionate. Real. Not stuck." That's what she said. I stood there in the hallway, frozen. Not stuck. Not me. The next evening, after dinner, I finally asked, "Are you still in this? With me?" She hesitated too long before she answered. "I don't know." There was no argument. No raised voices. Just that. "I'm confused," she said a few nights later, curled up at the edge of our bed, knees pulled into her chest. "I didn't mean to feel this way. I didn't go looking for it. I sat on the other side of the mattress, staring at the carpet. But you found it anyway." She nodded, almost ashamed. "I think I need space. To figure this out. To figure myself out." I wanted to ask, figure what out? If this guy, this shirtless stranger, really meant more than 8 years of quiet love and shared dinners and morning coffees. But I didn't ask. I just said, "How much space?" She shrugged. "A little time. Maybe I stay at the cottage for a while." Trent said he wouldn't mind. The words knocked the wind out of me. "You're moving in next door?" "It's not like that. I just need time, Neil." I laughed under my breath, bitter and quiet. "So you're going to figure it out while living 20 feet away with the guy you're confused about?" She looked like she was about to cry, but I didn't have it in me to comfort her. I just nodded, stood up, and left the room. The next day, she packed a bag like she was going on a weekend trip. She kissed my cheek goodbye, and it felt like an insult. Then she walked out, soft-footed, like a guest excusing herself from a party she didn't want to be at anymore. The screen door closed behind her, and I just stood in the hallway, staring at the space she'd left behind. Everything was quiet again, but it didn't feel peaceful anymore. It felt like the start of something I didn't know how to stop. The next morning, her side of the bed was untouched. No dent in the pillow, no blanket pulled back, just a flat, cold reminder that she hadn't come home. I sat on the edge for a long time, staring at the pattern of sunlight stretching across the carpet, trying to process how quickly things had shifted. One week we were splitting leftovers and deciding whether to watch a documentary or a sitcom. Now she was next door, waking up in someone else's air. She packed light, just a duffel bag and her camera gear. Walked out without drama. No tears, no big speech. She said she'd still come by for her things later. Said it like she was heading to a yoga retreat, not walking out on our life. At first, I thought I'd be wrecked. That I'd sit in the kitchen feeling sorry for myself, scrolling through old photos and replaying every little moment we shared. But that's not what happened. What happened was nothing. Just quiet. Long, uninterrupted silence. And I didn't hate it. The first couple days, I busied myself. Went into the office early, stayed late. Took on a new project, An old pedestrian bridge restoration. Normally I'd complain about the logistics, but now I welcomed it. Calculations didn't lie. Steel didn't change its mind mid-span. After work, I'd come home, grab my kayak, and paddle along the edge of the lake until the sun sank behind the treeline. The rhythm of the paddle, the birds calling overhead, the stillness of the water, it all made more sense than anything happening on land. I stopped checking my phone. She hadn't messaged anyway. Once or twice, I saw them outside through the kitchen window, her and Trent, sitting on his porch steps drinking coffee. She laughed once, loud enough for me to hear. I didn't flinch. One night, I called my dad. We don't talk much, not unless something breaks or someone dies. But that night, I just needed a voice that wasn't hers. She left, he asked, not surprised, not shocked, just confirming. Yeah, said she needs space. Said she's confused. He was quiet for a second. Then he said, if she needs someone else to realize what she had, she never deserved it in the first place. That stuck with me. After that, I started rearranging the house. Moved her coats from the hallway closet. Took her shampoo out of the shower. Not out of anger, just clarity. The space felt lighter without her things in it. I walked past her art desk one afternoon and realized I didn't miss the clutter. I didn't miss the way she'd leave coffee rings on my paperwork or forget to cap the toothpaste. I missed who I thought she was. But the longer she stayed gone, the more I realized how long I'd been living in her emotional shadow, shrinking myself to keep things calm, stepping aside to avoid being too much. Now, for the first time in a long while, it felt like there was room to breathe, and I wasn't sure I wanted her back. By the second week, I stopped waiting for her to come back. She hadn't texted, hadn't called, hadn't asked about her things. I saw her once, walking the dock barefoot with Trent, both holding mugs like they lived here, like she hadn't left a whole life behind with barely a backward glance. That was the morning I looked at the kitchen table, at the empty coffee mug across from mine, and thought, enough. I made a list. First, a lawyer, then the bank, then a locksmith. I gathered our documents, marriage license, property deed, joint account info. I put them in a manila folder and made an appointment downtown with a local attorney, the kind of guy who had a permanent tan and a no-nonsense tone. She moved out? He asked, flipping through the paperwork. Yeah, I said. Next door. His eyebrows raised, but he didn't comment. We'll get this started. You have every right to proceed. And just like that, something that had felt impossible before, unthinkable, started moving. I went home and opened our shared account. Transferred my half into a new personal one. Left hers untouched. I wasn't interested in war, just fairness. Then I started walking the house, one room at a time, separating what was mine and what was hers. It was easier than I thought it would be. The house looked cleaner by the hour. More mine. I took down the framed photo in the hallway. The one of us on a cliffside trail, sweaty and smiling, years ago. It felt like looking at strangers. I slid it into a box with the others and taped it shut. A couple of neighbors started whispering. I saw two of them at the market, Mrs. Hodges and her husband, the ones who always wave like it's 1955. Sorry to hear about Lila, she said, like it was a death. Yeah, her husband added. Saw her with the new guy at that outdoor movie night. Real cozy. I nodded, thanked them, and walked away without a word. I didn't owe anyone an explanation, and I sure didn't need gossip to tell me what I already knew. A few days later, Lila finally texted. Hey, just checking in. Hope you're doing okay. I stared at the message for a long time. Then I did something I hadn't done since this started. I deleted it. Unread. She'd made her choice. This wasn't limbo. This was aftermath. Love without loyalty? That's just sentiment. A beautiful lie. And I was done living on borrowed terms. I didn't want revenge. I didn't want an apology. I just wanted peace, the kind that doesn't depend on someone else's change of heart. By Friday, the lawyer had the divorce papers drafted. I read through every word, signed them in 3 places, and dropped them in the mailbox. No dramatic gestures. No final text. Just ink on paper. It was strange how light I felt walking back to the house. Like I'd finally set something down I didn't realize I'd been carrying for years. She walked in like she never left. 3 weeks after she packed a duffel and floated next door like she was heading to a weekend getaway, Lila strolled back into our kitchen with that same breezy smile. Like she had just returned from a spa retreat and was expecting brunch. Hey, she said lightly, slipping off her sunglasses. The house feels so quiet. I missed it. I didn't say anything. Just leaned against the counter, arms crossed, watching her move through the space like she still belonged. She glanced around like she was checking if anything had changed, maybe hoping it hadn't. I thought maybe we could talk, she added. I've had some time to think. I let the silence stretch until it got uncomfortable. She finally looked up, her smile faltering just a little. Trent's leaving in a few days, she said, like that mattered to me. He's taking a job out west, some grizzly bear project. It's really intense. Not really my thing. I just nodded. She stepped closer. I guess I got caught up in the idea of something new, the freedom of it. But I missed this. I missed you. I raised an eyebrow. Did you? She smiled again, softer this time. I think I just needed to see things clearly. I thought I wanted adventure, but what I really wanted was stability. And I already had that. I had you. I walked to the dining table without a word, opened the drawer beneath the placemats, and pulled out the envelope. Thick, white, crisp. I placed it in front of her. She looked down, then back at me. What's this? Divorce papers. The room went still. The birds outside were chirping like it was any other morning. Inside, she didn't move. You're serious? She said finally, voice soft. I nodded. Dead serious. Her hand hovered above the envelope. Neil. I thought you'd be relieved. I'm here now. I'm choosing this. No, Lila, I said quietly, you're choosing comfort. You're choosing familiarity. After chasing someone who made you feel young and wild and untethered, and realizing he doesn't want a mortgage or steady dinners or someone who leaves the cap off the toothpaste. Her mouth opened, but nothing came out. I stepped closer. You walked out, and I let you. I didn't chase you, didn't beg. I gave you the space you said you needed. She blinked. I didn't cheat, Neil. You didn't have to, I said. You crossed the line the second you started wondering if someone else could offer you more. You tested loyalty by running. You don't get to come back now like this is some trial separation. She was pale now, jaw tense. You don't have to be cruel. This isn't cruelty, I said. This is clarity. She reached for a chair, pulled it out like she needed to steady herself. I didn't think you'd move on so fast. I looked at her for a long moment. You thought I'd be here, waiting. That I'd fold the moment you changed your mind. But I already did my waiting, Lila. I already spent years loving someone who wasn't sure she loved me the same way. She looked away, eyes glossy now. I made a mistake. No, I said. You made a choice. This, I tapped the envelope, is mine. She didn't say another word. She didn't pick up the papers, either. She just left. The same way she did 3 weeks ago, soft-footed, head high, like she still thought this was something she could rewrite later. But this chapter was done. And this time, the door clicked shut behind her. She came back angrier this time. It was 4 days after I handed her the divorce papers. I'd spent the morning sanding the back deck and had just sat down with a beer when the knock came, a hard, fast, loud enough to shake the frame. I didn't need to check who it was. When I opened the door, Lila stood there flushed and tight-lipped, arms crossed, like she'd been rehearsing her lines the whole walkover. You're really going through with this, she snapped. I stepped aside and motioned to the kitchen. You want to have this out, come in, and say what you need to say. She stormed past me, tossing her purse on the counter. You're throwing away 8 years like it was nothing. No, I said calmly. You did that the moment you started treating our marriage like a breakable toy. She turned on me, eyes sharp. I didn't cheat, Neil. I didn't sleep with him. This reaction, it's petty. It's small. Don't insult both of us by pretending this was about sex, I said. You don't have to sleep with someone to betray your partner. You gave him your time, your attention, your energy. You gave him the part of you that used to belong to me. She scoffed and looked around the kitchen, maybe hoping to ground herself in something familiar. But I changed things, cleared her mugs from the shelf, tossed out her herbal teas, rearranged the photos. Her eyes landed on the bare counter and flicked back to me. I was confused, she said, her voice lower now. I got swept up. I'm sorry, but you don't just burn everything down over a mistake. I took a breath. No, I don't. But this isn't a burn. This is me closing the door. She shook her head, blinking fast. So what now? We just pretend none of it meant anything? What am I supposed to do? I stepped closer. Live with it. Her face cracked then. Just a little. She wasn't used to being the one left behind. I thought you'd at least try, she whispered. You always fix things. Yeah, I said, nodding. I did. For years. Every time you pulled away, every time you went distant or bored or restless, I tried harder. And you took that for granted. You're really going to throw me away? She asked, eyes narrowing. I looked at her, really looked at her, and for the first time, she didn't feel like home. She felt like a memory. A beautiful one, maybe, but one that didn't fit anymore. No, I said. You already threw yourself away. I'm just catching up. She stared at me, breathing hard, then grabbed her purse without another word. As she reached the door, I added quietly, you don't come back from this, Lila. Not again. She paused, hand on the doorknob. And then she walked out. No soft goodbye this time, no hesitation. Just gone. This time, the silence that followed didn't ache. It settled. Like peace. The divorce went through faster than I expected. Lila didn't contest anything. Maybe she thought it would give her back some dignity, or maybe she was just tired. Either way, there were no drawn-out fights, no dramatic court scenes. Just a couple of quiet signatures, a final hearing, and a clerk who asked us to confirm we understood what we were ending. I kept the house. The lawyer made sure of it. I kept most of the savings, too, not out of spite, but because I had always been the one putting money in while she wandered through hobbies and dreams. She moved in with her cousin 2 towns over. I heard it was temporary, but I didn't ask. At the hearing, she wore a gray sweater I used to love. Her hair was tied back. She looked down a lot. After the judge stamped the paperwork, she walked over and said, softly, "I'm sorry for everything." I nodded. I know. I didn't say, "It's okay." It wasn't. But I didn't need her apology to be more than what it was, a quiet acknowledgement of damage done. Weeks passed. One Sunday afternoon, I ran into her at the grocery store. She was in the cereal aisle, holding a box of something colorful, looking smaller than I remembered. She saw me, smiled hesitantly, and gave a little wave. I nodded once, polite. That was all. "No, how have you been? No, let's catch up." She turned away first. I walked out without looking back. The house feels different now. Not emptier, just mine. I replaced the curtains she always said were too bland. Repainted the front door. I started cooking again, just for myself. Real meals, not frozen ones. I even started kayaking in the mornings instead of the evenings, not for the view, but because I liked the quiet before the world woke up. I don't think about her every day anymore. Sometimes, sure. A song, a scent, a flash of a memory when I pass the old cottage. But it's not pain anymore. It's just, what was. One night, I poured a cup of coffee and stood at the window, watching the lake ripple in the wind. The same lake we once swam in, once danced beside with cheap wine and stupid jokes. It was finally quiet again. But this time, it wasn't the kind of quiet that meant something was missing. This time, it meant peace. And I finally understood the difference.